Chosen one, heaven has made a final decision about your case tonight. Do not skip this message. Do not scroll away. Stay until the very end, because what is happening in the spiritual realm around your life right now is extremely serious. Archangel Michael says a judgment concerning your suffering, your delays, your battles, and your future has already been spoken in heaven tonight. And once this decision fully unfolds, nothing about your life will remain the same. My beloved child, listen carefully. This message did not find you accidentally. Heaven pulled you here intentionally because your spirit needed this warning before the shift begins physically. Archangel Michael is standing beside your path right now saying, if they leave too early, they may miss the confirmation heaven is urgently trying to place into their spirit tonight. Stay here. Do not move, because the next few moments may explain why your life suddenly began feeling different recently. Chosen one, there has been a spiritual case surrounding your life for longer than you realize. Battles you could not see, delays you could not explain, pressure that appeared without warning, doors closing unexpectedly, emotional heaviness attacking your spirit repeatedly. You thought you were simply struggling emotionally, but heaven says something much deeper has been happening around your destiny. The enemy fought your future aggressively because they understood something about your assignment before you fully recognized it yourself. That is why confusion increased. That is why discouragement attacked your mind. That is why certain people suddenly turned against you without clear explanation. Darkness was attempting to weaken your spirit before your breakthrough season arrived. But tonight, heaven has spoken concerning your case. Type Amen if you believe God is fighting for you. My beloved child, Archangel Michael says, angels have been standing around your life during every painful season you survived. Even when you felt abandoned, protection surrounded you. Even when your prayers seemed unanswered, heaven was still watching carefully over your path. And tonight, after years of silent warfare around your destiny, a final spiritual decision has been released. The waiting season is ending. Read that carefully again. The waiting season is ending. Chosen one, there were moments where you almost surrendered completely, nights where your heart felt too tired to keep hoping, times when disappointment became so heavy that you wondered whether your life would ever truly change. You smiled publicly while privately carrying battles nobody else understood. But heaven saw every tear, every betrayal, every sleepless night, every silent prayer whispered through exhaustion. And tonight, God says your suffering has officially been brought before heaven. Archangel Michael is speaking urgently now saying, tell them the verdict has already been decided. Do not scroll now, because this next revelation matters deeply. The enemy expected your spirit to break permanently under pressure. They believed repeated delays would eventually destroy your confidence completely. They thought isolation would weaken your faith enough to disconnect you from your purpose. But despite every attack, you survived. You kept praying. You kept searching for God even while emotionally exhausted. And heaven honors endurance. Chosen one, tonight's decision is connected directly to restoration, not temporary relief, not small improvement, real spiritual reversal, the kind that changes the direction of your entire future. God says there are blessings delayed for years that are now being released because the spiritual resistance surrounding your life has weakened significantly tonight. Archangel Michael says, chains are breaking while you listen to this message. Invisible chains. Chains connected to fear. Chains connected to delay. Chains connected to emotional exhaustion and confusion. And once those chains fully break, movement begins. Type 1111 if you feel this message deeply in your spirit. My beloved child, there is also a reason spiritual attacks became stronger recently. The enemy sensed heaven preparing to rule in your favor tonight. Darkness often increases pressure before breakthrough moments, because fear is their final weapon against chosen ones close to elevation. That is why anxiety increased suddenly. That is why strange emotional heaviness appeared without explanation. That is why your mind felt under attack during quiet moments recently. But heaven says the attacks failed, because your spirit remained standing long enough for God's decision to be released. Chosen one, there are angels surrounding your home right now because this ruling affects more than one area of your life. It affects relationships, opportunities, finances, emotional healing, direction. Even the people allowed access to your future from this moment forward. Heaven is making separation decisions tonight. Some individuals will lose access to your energy. Some environments will no longer feel spiritually comfortable around you. Some doors will close permanently because they were connected to your delay, not your destiny. Do not fear these changes. They are necessary for the next season God is opening around your life. My beloved child, Archangel Michael says many chosen ones become afraid during transition seasons because old cycles begin collapsing before the new chapter fully appears. But tonight's ruling marks the beginning of divine movement around your future. You are no longer spiritually trapped where you were. Read that carefully again. You are no longer spiritually trapped where you were. Type 777 if you believe heaven is shifting your life tonight. Chosen one. There is also someone listening right now who has secretly felt the urge to give up recently. You became tired of waiting, tired of disappointment, tired of praying for change while nothing seemed to move visibly around your life. But God says if you could see what heaven decided tonight, you would understand why the enemy fought your spirit so aggressively these past months. Because your next chapter carries unusual favor. Favor connected to restoration. Favor connected to clarity. Favor connected to opportunities the old version of your life could never access safely. And heaven needed your spirit prepared before those doors could open correctly. My beloved child, tonight marks the ending of a painful spiritual cycle around your life. The confusion that surrounded your path for years will begin lifting gradually. Hidden truth will surface. Discernment will sharpen. And things that once made no sense emotionally will suddenly become clear in ways impossible to ignore. This is not coincidence. This is divine judgment. Archangel Michael says, heaven has officially ruled against the forces delaying your future, and very soon, you will begin seeing visible evidence that tonight changed everything. But after heaven released this final decision tonight, chosen one, something began shifting immediately in the spiritual realm around your life. Archangel Michael says many of you listening can already feel it without fully understanding what is happening. A strange heaviness lifting, a quiet emotional release, a sudden feeling that something hidden has changed behind the scenes. That feeling is not imagination, it is confirmation. Do not scroll now. Stay until the very end because what heaven is revealing next may completely explain the strange warfare you have endured these past few years. My beloved child, there were spiritual accusations spoken against your destiny for longer than you realize. Darkness studied your weaknesses. The enemy watched your emotional wounds carefully. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every season of loneliness became an attempt to build a case against your confidence, your future, and your assignment. The goal was simple, to convince you to surrender before your breakthrough arrived. That is why fear attacked your thoughts constantly. That is why discouragement repeated itself in cycles. That is why confusion surrounded your decisions whenever movement felt close. The enemy wanted your spirit exhausted enough to stop believing heaven still had plans for your future. But tonight, heaven answered. Type Amen if you believe God has spoken over your life tonight. Chosen one, Archangel Michael is standing before your path saying, tell them the verdict released tonight is irreversible. Read that carefully again. The verdict is irreversible. This means forces that delayed your movement no longer carry the same authority over your future. The chains connected to emotional confusion are weakening. Cycles that trapped you repeatedly are beginning to collapse spiritually. And people assigned only to your suffering season will slowly lose access to your energy as heaven repositions your life. Do not fear the separation that follows this ruling. Some connections survived only because spiritual delay protected them. But now heaven is moving you forward. My beloved child, tonight's decision also explains why certain people suddenly became distant from you recently. Some individuals sensed your spirit changing before you recognized it fully yourself. They noticed your tolerance for manipulation decreasing. They noticed your energy becoming calmer, stronger, and more discerning. And unconsciously this unsettled them. Because healed chosen ones move differently. They stop begging for clarity from confusing people. They stop chasing approval from emotionally inconsistent environments. They stop sacrificing peace simply to avoid loneliness. And heaven says this transformation inside you has officially begun. Chosen one. There were moments where you questioned whether your prayers even reached God anymore. You prayed through tears. You prayed through exhaustion. You prayed while carrying emotional wounds nobody around you fully understood. Yet silence remained. But heaven says silence was never absence. Silence was preparation for tonight's ruling. Archangel Michael says some answers could not arrive until your spirit matured enough to carry them safely. Earlier versions of yourself would have doubted the blessing. Earlier versions of yourself would have trusted the wrong people with sacred opportunities. Earlier versions of yourself would have carried insecurity into doors heaven intended to open around your destiny. But look how much you have grown. Pain sharpened your discernment. Isolation strengthened your intuition. Delay deepened your wisdom. Nothing was wasted. Type 1111. If you believe your suffering created strength. My beloved child, there is another reason tonight's spiritual judgment matters deeply. Hidden truth is about to surface around your life. People whose intentions remained unclear will begin revealing themselves naturally. Situations that confused you for years will suddenly make sense. Even certain memories may return differently because heaven is restoring clarity where emotional fog once existed. This is part of the ruling. Darkness thrived inside confusion. But confusion cannot survive where divine truth enters. Chosen one. There are angels surrounding your future assignment right now because what happens next affects more than just your personal life. The ruling released tonight impacts opportunities, finances, relationships, spiritual gifts, emotional healing, and even the timing connected to your next chapter. This is why spiritual attacks intensified recently. The enemy sensed heaven preparing movement around your destiny. And darkness always attacks hardest before losing access. Read that carefully again. Darkness attacks hardest before losing access. My beloved child, some of you listening have secretly battled exhaustion so deeply that you began functioning emotionally numb just to survive daily life. You stopped expecting good news because disappointment trained your spirit to prepare for loss automatically. You became careful with hope because hope felt dangerous after repeated delays. But God says tonight marks the ending of survival mode. You are entering restoration mode now. Not overnight perfection, but movement, visible movement. Archangel Michael says the next few weeks will carry unusual signs confirming tonight's ruling. Pay attention to sudden shifts around your environment. Certain conversations may open unexpectedly. Hidden opportunities may begin appearing quietly. People assigned to your next season may suddenly enter your life through what appears to be ordinary timing. Do not ignore these moments. Heaven often moves quietly before transformation becomes visible loudly. Type 777 if you believe your breakthrough season has begun. Chosen one. There is also someone connected to your past who will become confused by your transformation after tonight. They expected your spirit to remain wounded permanently. They believed emotional pain would keep you trapped beneath your true potential forever. But heaven says your healing is about to become impossible to hide, not because you suddenly become perfect, but because peace will begin replacing confusion. Clarity will begin replacing fear. Purpose will begin replacing emotional exhaustion. And people can feel when chosen ones finally stop carrying broken energy. My beloved child, heaven is also restoring your voice during this season. For too long you stayed silent to avoid conflict. You ignored your intuition to preserve unstable connections. You questioned your own discernment because manipulation made confusion feel normal around certain people and environments. But tonight's ruling breaks that cycle. Your discernment is becoming stronger. Your boundaries are becoming clearer. Your spirit is becoming more difficult to manipulate emotionally. And that growth is sacred. Protect it carefully. Chosen one. Archangel Michael says, many chosen ones become uncomfortable once heaven starts removing emotional attachments connected to delay. Why? Because familiarity can feel safer than transformation at first. Even painful cycles become emotionally comfortable when they repeat long enough. But God says your future cannot unfold correctly while your spirit remains chained to environments assigned only to your suffering season. That is why separation may continue happening after tonight. Do not resist it. Some people must lose access for destiny to fully open. Read that carefully again. Some people must lose access for destiny to fully open. Type Amen. If you trust God's decisions tonight, My beloved child, there are blessings approaching your life now that require emotional stability, stronger discernment, and spiritual maturity. Earlier versions of yourself might have sabotaged these opportunities unintentionally through fear, insecurity, or emotional attachment to unhealthy cycles. But tonight marks a spiritual transition. You are no longer who you used to be. Your spirit carries different wisdom now, different awareness, different standards, and because of that transformation, heaven can trust you with more. Chosen one, there is another hidden truth connected to tonight's ruling. Some delays in your life were never punishment. They were protection from entering rooms before your spirit was healed enough to survive inside them safely. God was preserving your future while you interpreted delay as rejection. Archangel Michael says, heaven has spent years rebuilding your identity quietly behind the scenes. Even during your darkest seasons, growth was happening invisibly. Your resilience strengthened, your intuition deepened, your ability to recognize spiritual danger improved dramatically. That wisdom matters now more than ever before, because your next chapter carries responsibility alongside favor. My beloved child, there will soon come a moment where you suddenly realize just how much tonight changed spiritually around your life. A burden will lift unexpectedly. Anxiety connected to old cycles will weaken. Decisions that once felt emotionally impossible will suddenly become clear. When that happens, do not doubt the shift. Heaven has already ruled concerning your future, and what God has approved cannot remain blocked forever. Chosen one, tonight was not ordinary. Tonight was spiritual transition. Tonight was divine separation from old cycles. Tonight was heaven announcing the ending of one season and the beginning of another. And very soon, the visible evidence of this ruling will begin appearing around every area of your life. And as this spiritual transition continues unfolding after tonight's ruling, chosen one, Archangel Michael says many things hidden around your life will no longer remain concealed. Truth is rising now. Clarity is entering places where confusion ruled for years, and people who once operated comfortably behind masks will slowly begin revealing themselves without realizing heaven is exposing them. Do not scroll now. Stay with me carefully because this next revelation may explain why certain strange shifts are already beginning around your relationships, emotions, and future direction. My beloved child, tonight's decision in heaven did not only concern your blessings, it also concerned your protection. For too long, your spirit remained connected to environments that drained your energy slowly while pretending to offer comfort. Some people around you benefited emotionally from your confusion, others benefited from your lack of boundaries, and some secretly hoped your confidence would never fully return because your brokenness made them feel more secure about themselves. But heaven says the season of emotional blindness is ending now. Your discernment is awakening fully. Read that carefully again. Your discernment is awakening fully. Type Amen if you believe God is opening your eyes spiritually. Chosen one, there were moments where your intuition tried to warn you repeatedly. That strange heaviness after conversations, that sudden exhaustion around certain individuals, that quiet voice inside your spirit, telling you something felt wrong even when your emotions wanted to ignore it. Those warnings mattered. Your soul recognized danger before your heart accepted the truth emotionally. And now Archangel Michael says tonight's ruling has strengthened your spiritual sensitivity even further. You will no longer tolerate confusion the same way. You will no longer ignore emotional instability just to preserve temporary peace with people who repeatedly damage your spirit, because heaven is restoring your inner authority. My beloved child, the enemy spent years trying to disconnect you from your intuition. Manipulation made you question yourself. Betrayal made you doubt your judgment. Emotional exhaustion weakened your confidence until confusion started feeling normal around certain situations and people. But tonight's ruling breaks that pattern. You are beginning to trust your spirit again. And that changes everything. Chosen one, there are some individuals who will become uncomfortable around you after this shift, because your energy no longer feels easy to control emotionally. Healed chosen ones disturb environments built around manipulation because healing removes fear-based attachment. People notice when your silence becomes peaceful instead of wounded. People notice when your boundaries become stronger. People notice when your spirit stops begging for validation. and some will react negatively because your growth exposes their inability to grow themselves. Do not fear this reaction. It is confirmation that transformation has already begun. Type 1111 if you feel yourself changing internally. My beloved child, heaven is also releasing restoration over areas of your life where darkness created long seasons of delay. Some opportunities blocked repeatedly in the past will begin opening naturally now. Certain conversations that once led nowhere may suddenly create movement. Doors that remained silent for years may begin responding differently around your future. This is not coincidence. This is divine authorization. Archangel Michael says tonight's ruling removed certain spiritual obstacles standing between you and your next season. The pressure may not disappear instantly, but movement has already begun in the unseen realm. And once heaven moves, nothing can permanently stop what God approved. Chosen one, there is another important truth connected to tonight's decision. Some losses you mourn deeply were actually hidden victories. You cried over people heaven removed to protect your spirit. You grieved over opportunities too small for your assignment. You begged for answers concerning situations God intentionally blocked because they carried future pain you could not yet see clearly. But tonight clarity begins replacing confusion. You will start understanding why certain endings became necessary. You will begin recognizing hidden protection inside painful separation, and slowly your spirit will stop viewing your past only through the lens of suffering. Because heaven was guiding you even during your darkest seasons. My beloved child, there is someone listening right now who secretly feels emotionally exhausted from carrying battles alone for too long. You became so used to surviving quietly that asking for help started feeling impossible. You learned how to smile while your spirit slowly carried unbearable pressure internally. But Archangel Michael says tonight heaven officially acknowledged every hidden battle you fought silently. Every tear mattered. Every moment where you chose not to give up mattered. And because your endurance remained active despite the warfare around your life, heaven has now released movement concerning your future. Type 777 if you believe heaven heard every prayer. Chosen one. Tonight's ruling also marks the beginning of a spiritual separation season. Certain environments will no longer feel emotionally comfortable around you. Some conversations may suddenly feel draining where they once felt familiar. Some people may begin distancing themselves naturally, because your spirit no longer matches the frequency of confusion they carried comfortably before. Do not panic when this happens. It is not abandonment. It is elevation. Heaven is adjusting your environment to match the season now approaching your destiny. And elevation often requires separation before alignment fully appears. My beloved child, Archangel Michael says, there are blessings assigned to your future that require stronger emotional boundaries. Earlier versions of yourself may have trusted the wrong people too quickly. Earlier versions of yourself may have sacrificed peace to avoid loneliness. Earlier versions of yourself may have ignored red flags because emotional attachment felt stronger than discernment. But look how much you have changed. Pain matured you. Delay sharpened your intuition. Isolation taught you the value of peace. And now your spirit carries wisdom your old self never possessed before. That wisdom is part of tonight's victory. Chosen one. Heaven is also restoring your confidence slowly during this season. Not loud pride. Not arrogance, quiet confidence rooted in spiritual clarity. The kind of confidence that no longer depends on external validation. The kind that allows you to walk away from emotionally draining environments without constantly questioning your worth afterward. This confidence threatens darkness, because confident chosen ones stop accepting cycles that weaken their spirit. Archangel Michael says your voice is becoming spiritually stronger now. The enemy wanted you permanently silenced by fear, rejection, and emotional exhaustion. But heaven says your spirit survived too much warfare to remain trapped beneath insecurity forever. Your breakthrough requires confidence. Your next chapter requires boundaries, and tonight's ruling activated both. Type Amen if you are stepping into your next season. My beloved child, there will soon come moments where things begin happening around your life faster than expected. Opportunities may appear suddenly. Emotional clarity may arrive unexpectedly. Certain people may reveal hidden intentions without you needing to force truth out of them anymore. Do not become afraid when movement increases. This acceleration is connected to heaven's decision tonight. Because once spiritual resistance weakens, destiny begins moving differently. Chosen one, there is another hidden reason the enemy attacked your mind so aggressively recently. Darkness sensed your perspective changing before visible breakthrough arrived. And perspective changes are dangerous to the enemy, because once chosen ones see clearly, manipulation loses power completely. That is why confusion intensified before tonight. That is why emotional heaviness increased suddenly. That is why exhaustion tried to convince you to stop hoping altogether. But heaven says the attack failed, because your spirit survived long enough for the ruling to be released, and now your future is shifting. My beloved child, some people around you still do not understand how much spiritual warfare you endured privately. They saw your silence, but not your suffering. They saw your smile, but not the battles attacking your mind late at night. They saw your delays, but not the invisible resistance fighting your movement behind the scenes. But heaven saw everything, and tonight heaven responded. Archangel Michael says there are angels surrounding your next chapter now, because your life is entering a season where divine favor becomes visible, not because you suddenly become perfect, but because your spirit remained faithful during seasons where giving up would have been easier emotionally. That faithfulness carries spiritual reward. Chosen one, very soon there will be undeniable signs confirming that tonight changed everything spiritually around your life. A burden may suddenly lift. Peace may appear where anxiety once ruled. Certain doors may open effortlessly after years of struggle. Conversations may align unexpectedly. Even your energy may feel lighter because chains connected to emotional exhaustion are breaking. When these signs appear, do not dismiss them. Do not explain them away. Heaven is confirming the ruling through visible movement. And this is only the beginning. Because tonight, heaven officially decided your suffering season would not continue forever. And now, chosen one, Archangel Michael says the final stage of this spiritual transition has officially begun around your life. Tonight's ruling was not temporary emotion. It was not symbolic language. It was an actual shift in the unseen realm concerning your future, your peace, your direction, and the forces that fought against your destiny for years. Do not scroll now. Stay with me until the very end, because this final message carries the confirmation heaven wants your spirit to receive before the visible evidence begins appearing around your life. My beloved child, there were moments where you truly believed the suffering would never end. The delays lasted so long that disappointment became emotionally familiar. You learned how to survive exhaustion quietly because hope itself started feeling dangerous after so many setbacks. But heaven says tonight changed that cycle permanently. Read that carefully again. Tonight changed that cycle permanently. Archangel Michael is speaking powerfully now, saying, tell them the chapter of constant delay has officially lost authority over their destiny. Chosen one, the enemy wanted your story to end in discouragement. Darkness believed repeated disappointment would eventually silence your faith completely. They expected emotional exhaustion to disconnect you from your assignment, but despite every attack against your spirit, you survived. Not because you were always strong, but because heaven refused to release its hand from your life. Type Amen if you believe God carried you through impossible seasons. My beloved child, tonight's decision also explains why your spirit has felt unusually emotional recently. Some of you listening have cried unexpectedly without fully understanding why. Others felt strange pressure lifting suddenly during quiet moments. Some noticed old fears weakening for no clear reason. That is because spiritual chains began breaking after heaven ruled in your favor. Invisible chains. Chains connected to confusion. Chains connected to emotional bondage. Chains connected to cycles that repeatedly delayed your peace. And once those chains fully collapse, movement begins rapidly. Chosen one, there are blessings now approaching your life that could not safely arrive during previous seasons because too many unhealthy attachments still surrounded your spirit. Some people carried hidden jealousy toward your future. Others carried emotional instability that would have contaminated the peace heaven is preparing around your next chapter. But tonight, separation was authorized spiritually. Not everyone connected to your past can follow you where God is taking you now, and that truth may feel painful temporarily. but it is necessary for protection. Archangel Michael says some individuals will naturally lose access to you after this season begins unfolding fully. Conversations will fade. Emotional attachment will weaken. Certain environments will suddenly feel spiritually uncomfortable around you. Do not force yourself backward into places heaven is removing you from emotionally. Trust the separation, because separation is creating space for alignment. Type 1111 if you trust God's decisions tonight. My beloved child, there is another hidden truth concerning tonight's ruling that heaven needs you to understand clearly. The enemy spent years trying to convince you that your delays reflected your worth. They wanted you believing that closed doors meant rejection from God Himself. But heaven says many doors closed because your assignment required something greater than what your emotions were attached to at the time. Read that carefully again. Some doors closed because your destiny was bigger than your attachment. You cried over opportunities heaven blocked for your protection. You mourned relationships that could not survive your spiritual growth. You questioned endings that secretly rescued your future. But tonight clarity begins replacing confusion permanently. Chosen one, your discernment is becoming sharper than ever before now. Situations that once confused you emotionally will suddenly appear obvious. Manipulation you ignored before will become impossible to tolerate now. Your spirit is no longer willing to sacrifice peace simply to preserve unstable connections. This is spiritual maturity, and heaven is proud of your growth. Archangel Michael says, many chosen ones never realize how much transformation happened inside them until old cycles suddenly stop feeling emotionally attractive anymore. That is what is happening to you now. You are outgrowing confusion. You are outgrowing survival mode. You are outgrowing relationships and environments that repeatedly weakened your spirit. And because of that transformation, your next chapter can finally unfold correctly. Type 777 if you feel yourself changing internally. My beloved child, there is also financial restoration connected to tonight's ruling. Some of you listening carried silent stress concerning money, stability, and future security for far too long. You smiled publicly while privately wondering how things would ever improve, but heaven says lack was never your permanent identity. The delays surrounding provision are weakening now. New opportunities will begin appearing unexpectedly. Conversations connected to increase will begin opening quietly. Even your perspective concerning abundance will start changing because fear no longer carries the same authority over your spirit after tonight. Archangel Michael says, heaven is restoring your expectation again, because chosen ones cannot walk fully into blessing while secretly expecting disappointment. And disappointment trained your spirit for too long. But tonight broke something spiritually. Tonight interrupted the cycle. My beloved child, there is another reason heaven delayed this ruling until now. Earlier versions of yourself were not emotionally prepared for the weight of the blessing approaching your future. Insecurity would have sabotaged opportunities. Emotional wounds would have attracted the wrong people into sacred spaces connected to your destiny. But look at you now. Pain deepened your wisdom. Isolation strengthened your intuition. Delay matured your spirit. And now heaven can trust you with more. Chosen one, there will soon come a moment where visible evidence of tonight's ruling begins appearing around your life unmistakably. It may start through one conversation, one unexpected opportunity, one emotional breakthrough, one door suddenly opening after years of silence. When that moment comes, do not doubt it. Do not minimize it. Do not allow fear to convince you that nothing has changed, because heaven already ruled concerning your case tonight, and divine rulings create movement. Archangel Michael says there are angels surrounding your future assignment because your next season carries unusual favor. People who once overlooked your value may suddenly notice your presence differently. Doors that ignored you previously may begin responding. Even your energy will shift because peace changes the atmosphere around chosen ones. This is why darkness fought your healing so aggressively. Healed chosen ones become difficult to manipulate. Peaceful chosen ones become difficult to distract. Spiritually awakened chosen ones become difficult to delay. And heaven says, your awakening has officially begun. Type Amen if you believe your breakthrough season is here. My beloved child, There is also someone listening right now who secretly fears disappointment returning again. Part of you wants to believe tonight changed everything, but another part still remembers all the previous heartbreak, delay, and emotional exhaustion. Heaven understands that fear, but God says your past pain cannot determine your future anymore. Read that carefully again. Your past pain cannot determine your future anymore. The old season trained your spirit for survival. The new season will train your spirit for alignment, and alignment feels different than struggle. Peaceful, clear, steady, not perfect overnight, but different, chosen one. There are relationships entering your future now that will not carry the same confusion you tolerated in past seasons. There are opportunities approaching your path that will align with your healing instead of your wounds. There are environments waiting for you where your spirit will not constantly feel emotionally drained just trying to survive. Because heaven is no longer building your future around your pain. Heaven is building your future around your purpose. Archangel Michael says one final thing before this message ends. Tell them tonight was the turning point. The enemy thought the pressure would break you before this moment arrived, but heaven preserved your spirit long enough for the ruling to be released. And now the chains are weakening. The delays are collapsing, the confusion is lifting, and the next chapter of your life is finally beginning to move. My beloved child, very soon you will look back at this season and realize tonight was the moment everything shifted spiritually around your destiny. The burden will feel lighter, the fear will lose power, the clarity will become undeniable, and when that realization fully reaches your spirit, you will stop asking heaven why the suffering lasted so long. Because you will finally understand, God was preparing you for the life now approaching your future.